What was your favorite game of the Cubs-White Sox series? How good was the roller coaster yesterday? And where does yesterday's game fit into crosstown history?
Yeah, I think it might fit atop it. I cannot remember a better baseball game in the Crosstown Classic, whatever you want to call it, whatever they used to call it. It was a hell of a baseball game, and it was, I think my favorite game of the series might have been the Saturday game because you kept, you watched what happened Friday and you thought that was the end of hope. And the fact that they managed to rally and come back and play well. But really the favorite game would have to be Sunday. It was the best baseball game. It was the most back and forth and up and down, and you felt at different points that the game was over and someone had won it, and then it was like, no, they've lost, oh my gosh, and then you thought it was completely gone. But that was that game might have been the best one I've seen. I can't think of another game between the Cubs and the Sox that was as back and forth and as anyone could win as that game was. And the fact that it was also a rubber match was really interesting. And, I honestly thought that the Sox were out of it. And then I thought the Cubs were out of it. And it just didn't matter what you thought because nobody was out of it until the final walk-off. It's just an extraordinary baseball game.
It was an extraordinary baseball game. My favorite was obviously Friday night, the Cubs winning 10-5 because of the result. Saturday, boy, the Sox just crushed the ball. I mean, Mully Murakami, 2 home runs. I think the Sox had, 5 in total in that game? There were 7 in that game. So if you like the fireworks, Friday night they had a fireworks show after the game. That's just what they do. And then they may as well have one on Saturday as well, where the ball was flying out of the park. But yeah, I mean, Mully, to your point, back and forth. The Cubs were cruising. You couldn't believe that they were only up 4-1 on Eric Fetty. I mean, right. Eric Fetty threw like 80 pitches in 3 innings. I mean, he was out there forever. Cubs, as usual, terrible with runners in scoring position, 2 for 15, I think. But then the Sox take the lead. The Conforto home. I mean, just back and forth. It's going to be It's got to be a top 3 right now of all time in that series.
Yeah, I think they've been playing for 29 years in this rivalry, the series, Crosstown Series, however you want to refer to it this year. But it'd be hard to find a series any better or more even and competitive, and it definitely would be hard to find a game any better than yesterday. The back and forth, especially in the late innings. You had the Sox coming back after they roughed up Fetty, and that seemed like an afterthought after the game. You're like, okay, who started this game again? And then the big Conforto homer you think is going to be enough, and then the Cubs go ahead, and you think, oh boy, the Sox came close. Those gritty Sox, they're upstarts, and then they end up winning it in the way that they won it. And then you're asking yourself, do you believe in the magic wand? Do you believe in magic of Mike Vassell and his little abracadabra? Hit a home run, Mooney. Hit a home run, Edgar. And whatever he seems to do, whatever they have done is working. And so now you come out of that series and you've got guys like grizzled veterans and grumpy old Paul Sullivan, Sully at the Tribune, wondering if this is the shades of 1977 when both teams were in first place. That's going way back. When both teams were in first place for several weeks during the summer. And the Sox are 24-22. The Guardians are 26-22. The only difference is the Guardians have won 2 more games. So I guess it's not as crazy as that sounds, but it feels as crazy as it can be because you didn't expect this, but this weekend was definitely memorable.
It's a great question.
That's the voice of Zach Saban. You heard Zach all weekend on Cubs radio, sitting in for the Hall of Famer Pat Hughes, and Zach will join Mully and Haugh at 9 o'clock this morning. How tough was this series loss for the Cubs, and was Sunday's loss the worst of the season, and what did losing to the White Sox expose?
Well, the thing about the series is that as great as it was for the White Sox, and I think they can use it as a springboard, the Cubs can still recover, and this series against the Brewers really means more to them than the one they just finished.
Ditto the Royals series. We talked about this.
But I think the Cubs are in a different spot because they are. I feel like they could absorb the loss to the Sox, and they're still in first. They still have in a division, and that was not as impactful on their season as it was for the White Sox. So I don't know if it was their worst loss of the season. Maybe that hasn't happened yet. I think I could go back to a couple others that maybe stung a little bit more. But I think in the same breath, you could understand why the White Sox would say that was their best win of the season. So it's just different context for different teams. And now the Cubs come into it against the Brewers, and the Sox series exposed or reinforced the weakness of the bullpen. And the Cubs have a Phil Maton problem. They paid him a lot of money to come here, and he's not been good. And they have injuries to the rotation and to their staff that were maybe exposed. And now you've got tired relievers. And I don't know about Milner or Palencia tonight, if they have to go to Milner or Palencia tonight. And so where do you go then? This is a tired, beaten-up bullpen. And I don't know if reinforcements are on the way. Javier Assad just went down. So they have a bullpen problem that was exposed.
Bullpen problem that was exposed. It's interesting, David, what you said there. And the Brewers are coming to town. They're in town. And the Cubs are up by a game and a half on them. Do you think that had anything to do with the fact I was very upset after the game, not a big surprise there, but I was upset that Daniel Palencia was not brought back out.
Well,
right? And
you texted that, and I didn't see it. Like, this is May.
Well, I know, but they all count. I'm saying after you were in that, I'm saying it was unbelievable that the Cubs had even gotten themselves back into that ball game. And you used Palencia to help keep you in the ball game, right? Mm-hmm. He threw 14 pitches yesterday. He had to have been able to come back out, but is it because the Brewers are coming to town and those games, at the end of the day, something we talked about as well about the Royals and the White Sox, like these games mean more because they're in your division, right? And so so I think it's not the worst loss of the season for the Cubs. It might be the best win of the season for the White Sox, but you hope there's more for them as well, right? That shouldn't be the year's over. We beat the Cubs 2 out of 3. Like that shouldn't be okay. That's why I think it was interesting hearing Venable after the game, like not getting too high on the fact that they won the series. Great series. That was good. We got to pack our bags. Got to head west, facing a really good team. Very business as usual. So, but yeah, I was obviously disappointed that we didn't get more Palencia. 14 pitches, and I thought he could have come back out.
Yeah, but you answered it.
I know.
It's because of the Brewers.
In the moment,
yes.
I'm saying in the moment, I was ticked off.
I thought, I really thought that it was not the worst loss of the season for the Cubs. It's a really hard way to lose. I'll give you that. But I thought when I heard Craig Counsell talk about after the game, he said something like, "What a great baseball game it was," and that that's baseball. That sometimes you win them, sometimes you lose them, but it was a great baseball game. And I think when you are able to come back and you are able to take a lead, I get it. You want to get the business done, but it was pretty extraordinary the way that game went and played out, and I felt it was unpredictable. I think that when you are just getting trounced or when you're just kind of not there and not competing, those are really bad losses. There are dramatic losses where a team, and the Cubs have had so many dramatic wins where they've come back and done things. As far as what it exposed, I think it's twofold. I think they really left a lot of runners on base, and they didn't do that in the first game. But they did that in the remaining game. They certainly did it yesterday. And I felt that, above all else, it's the pitching woes. It is specifically the bullpen, but they've had issues all year. And they've kind of been able to just kind of gloss over them and keep going. But it really did seem that they do have a Phil Maton problem. And you did get a sense that using the same reliever in high leverage 3 games run not a great idea. But I think it's the position they're in. And really, from a White Sox perspective, had that game continued, I don't know who they would have used. I don't know what they would have done. I don't know how they would have won.
And I know what your next question is, so go ahead.
We'll ask questions of Bruce Levine at 7:25. Who was the most valuable player of the Crosstown series? Was there a most disappointing? What moment or moments will you remember the most?
I think some of the big home runs would probably be what I remember the most. And I know I should remember other things, but there's something about the boom goes the dynamite and the fireworks going off and the fact that runs have been scored. It's pretty extraordinary. And man, there were a lot of home runs. I think the most valuable player of the Crosstown series might have been Miguel Vargas because he was productive pretty much every time he was up. I thought he did really well. I mean, I would love to say Mully because he got a double, but he didn't get knocked in when he got the double. He had 2 homers in a game for the first time, and Jameson Taillon is the first pitcher in his short career that he has homered off of twice. Every home run has come against a different pitcher until he got the 2 against JMO. So I feel good about him. Davis Martin is my guy. I love that guy. I love how well he's pitching and how well he's playing. And you really felt like he steadied the ship. But Pete Crow Armstrong, his defense, how many of those innings were limited because that guy can make a great catch
Or a great throw.
I mean, absolutely unbelievable how good he is defensively. And it makes you feel good about the fact that they gave him that contract because it's like, what's the worst case scenario? He's the best defensive player in Major League Baseball. It's great. There's no downside.
This might surprise you, Mully, the answer to your question here. Andrew Benintendi, he was great this weekend. He had 5 hits in the 2 wins, had a homer, and specifically something that Stoney talked about when I was at the game Saturday working, and it just jumped off. It rattled in my brain. Benintendi led off the 4th inning with a double, and you're like, well, what's the big? But I mean, they were already up 5-0 at that point. And in years past, he basically would have, not him, it's just the way the White Sox were, he would have just jogged to first base. And he would have, he had a long single, right? No, he hit that ball, and he busted his rear end and got a double that probably 50% of baseball would have just taken the single. And I just think it's like a tone thing. And he's had a rough go of it. But in that series, if you look back at it,
the bunt
he was
he
really
had,
good.
5 hits.
Right.
He bunted,
Yes.
and he was out, and he was almost. They ruled him safe, and they had to change the call.
But he had a really nice kind of, he's batting lower now in the lineup.
Less pressure. Same money.
Yeah, but he just stuck out. I mean, again, Mully was spectacular, right? I mean,
that's a good call.
38,000 plus, hits 2 home runs. The one he totally reached for, right? I mean, the big Jameson Taillon, biggest disappointment. You can't give up 5 home runs.
Can't do that.
You can't give up.
But Craig Counsell left him in to give him up.
Well, right. I mean,
because he had to wear it.
He had to wear
eat
it,
the innings,
and he wore it, right? I mean, but that was the best and the worst players of the weekend to me were Benintendi and Jameson Taillon.
Yeah, I think when you look at the series as a whole, the first moment that's going to stand out in your memory is Edgar Carroll. The walk-off to decide the rubber match. Edgar Hero.
First homer of
How about
the
that?
year.
The first, and a guy who is knowing he's likely to be sent down whenever Kyle Teal gets healthy. We'll talk about that later. So Edgar Carroll, definitely potty mouth Crow Armstrong. That's going to be a moment that you remember, him going back and forth with the fan, because that was a memorable thing. That was the year. But Mully going deep twice on Saturday night, hitting one crazy distance, and then just his sheer force, and you think, okay, he's back. 2 home runs in the game. You would wonder we had talked Saturday morning about him not talking to the media after games. Bruce was getting a little bit rankled and all these things. Then he hits 2 home runs. Like, all right, that's Mooney. He's comfortable again. And then I think we talked about it, alluded to it, the whole Green Bay sucks chant that kind of brought the fans together.
That's nice.
That was nice. I know, but that's what I mean when you talk about memorable moments.
Yeah, that's nice.
That's what you're going to remember a lot about this series. So an MVP is kind of like the most valuable populace. The fans were the most valuable, I think, in terms of the turnout, in terms of the interaction, in terms of everything. This was a tremendous weekend for baseball fans in the city of Chicago. Win or lose, if your team was on the short end, Sox fans could be a little chesty. That's fine. You earned it. So the fans, I think, were the ultimate winners this weekend.
Hey, and shout out to the White Sox for broadcasting the game on free TV all weekend. All the games were on Channel 26. And, for those of us that have CHSN and the Marquee Network and all that stuff, we don't think about people that don't get a chance to watch. But I thought that was a real... First of all, you're promoting your good young team. Secondly, you're promoting the great work done on CHSN. Maybe you got some subscribers out of it. But it was more than anything like a real nod to the city and a good thing to do.